I love hiring athletes. I think they bring a sports mentality to the job. There's just a certain edge and competitiveness that they have that's ingrained in them that allowed them to excel enough at that sport to play collegiately or even in high school, right?
At Elements of Culture, we sit down with experts in leadership and team building to explore the DNA that drives a thriving organization. Hello, and welcome to Elements of Culture. My name's Taryn, and I'm joined with my co host, Julie. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Matt Grossbard. He is the VP of Sales at Techvera, which is an IT and business solutions company. And Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Course. We're so excited just to have a good chat about sales. You have really just a wide variety of background in sales specifically, but I know you wanted to share a little bit about your journey, kind of where you started, what's brought you to where you're at today. So before we get into the full conversation, help us understand a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like most people in sales, I don't think anybody is going through their collegiate career being like, I'm going to get into sales when I graduate, right? I think it's something that you very often fall into. And that's what happened to me. I graduated in college, got a job at a company called Single Platform, which was one of the premier startups in New York City back in 2010, 2011. I joined the company in 2013. Um, and it was an amazing place to work. Uh, it was one of the harder sales jobs that I've ever encountered in my journey so far. Um, Fresh out of college, they stuck you in a classroom for a week and performed a really intense training. And then you were out on this sales floor with like 50, 60, all the way up to 100 people, all in their young 20s, all first job out of college. We were making 250 cold calls a day to mostly restaurants. And our service was that it was an incredible service for them. We were able to basically put their menu on Yelp, Yahoo, Google, wherever people were looking for places to eat. And they could go to our platform and they could update it in one place, then it would get updated everywhere. Very, very transactional sale. Majority of the sales were a one call close. So picture getting a restaurant owner on the phone in the middle of their busy day, getting them to listen to you for 30 minutes and then asking them to read you their credit card over the phone. And we did this successfully like hundreds of times a day. Truly amazing, really taught me everything that I knew about sales in terms of tonality and how to close a deal and hard work and positive mental attitude and all the things that you have to have in order to do that rigorous job of 250 cold calls a day in and day out. Um, After about a year there, I was promoted to a manager role where I started to manage people that were fresh out of college doing this job. I then fell into being the head trainer. So I would do all of the hiring for our new classes. We hired about 8 to 10 new people every month. I would be the one now in the classroom training them on how to do this and then manage them for their first 3 months. Um, then I became a senior director, started managing managers. But the experience that I got there was truly full cycle and full circle, right? I went from being the person on the phones, making the calls, closing the deals, to managing people, to hiring people, and then training them how to do it and manage them on an ongoing basis. So I was at Single Platform for about 4 years. And just the most incredible experience. Still some of my best friends in lifelong friends that I met at Single Platform. But from a professional standpoint, it really set me up for success long term.
Wow, that's amazing. 250 cold calls a day.
It
You
was
were
a grind. It was
the
fun.
grunt work. That's a lot of grunt work, Matt. You stuck
Yeah.
it out. Hey, and you moved into leadership. So that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think the reason why people were willing to do it was the culture that Single Platform had. It was an amazing place to work. Like, I never felt like I was waking up in the morning and going into work. I had all these friends there and we had happy hours and sales contests, and the managers were amazing and the leadership was amazing. And it was just truly like an incredible place to go every single day. And I think a lot of what I've learned about and caring about your team and helping people grow in their own careers, I learned from Single Platform, just a overall A+ experience.
Matt, you shared so much about your experience and where you've come from, where you started in sales that foundational pieces, the culture, just that go get them, how to win, celebrating all the wins. But really, when we were talking, just getting into more details on the leadership, you really gained such a wide experience at the company Electric. To us a little bit about that, and what are some of those key pieces that you learned that you're able to implement now as a leader?
Yeah. Like I said, single platform was this incredible experience. I feel like my graduation was to Electric. And at Electric, I started about 7 people, and my job was to build it from scratch from a revenue perspective. So lots of testing, lots of late nights, lots of failure along the way. But over time, we were able to scale and grow that organization from 1 to 3, and then 3 to 10, and then 10 to 40 million. And learned so many lessons along the way in terms of process building and scalability and growth. But from a leadership perspective, I think what I really learned was how to manage and run a different sales process. I was so ingrained in my 4 years of single platform doing things a certain way. If I had done it the exact same way, I would have failed. And luckily, I had great leadership and great mentorship to say, hey, take your skill set, but let's think about how that skill set fits into this more, larger sales cycle, larger sales process, all those types of things. And it was such a great learning experience for me. It was definitely building the plane while we were flying it. But the experience that I gained at Electric, just going from, you know, 0 a year in revenue all the way up to 40 million a year in revenue, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better, experience and education on how to really do this stuff. And my experience in Electric is really what set me up for success long term. Taking the role of Techvera, similar industry, playing in that managed service provider space. I'm forever grateful and love Electric forever because they gave a 24-year-old kid the opportunity to really took a huge chance, right? And saying, hey, yeah, we want you to kind of build this and lead it and grow it. And man, what a great, just overall great experience.
That's amazing. So, Matt, you talked about the culture being amazing. Talk to me about, I know of cultures that have all the things that you mentioned and they're still not good.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what a good culture feels like and go like, because for you to get up every morning and want to go to your sales job and do 250 calls, like I would love to know what does a company have to entail to make you fall in love with the company because that is amazing to me. And I think that speaks to the leadership of that company as well and the type of leaders they develop.
Yeah, and I think this actually rings true for my second stop at Livestream, where I ran SMB, and then my longest tenure job at Electric, which I'll get into. But I think that all of those had great cultures, and I think the thing that single platform showed me that then I was able to help bring to those other organizations is I have a sports background. I was a college basketball player; it played a huge part in my life, and when you're on a team and everybody on that team is working their butts off to go accomplish this goal, whether it's winning a game, hitting a goal in practice, hitting a sales number, you don't want to let down the people around you. Right. And it's like, I got to show up every day. I got to be sharp and enthusiastic and have this positive attitude because if I don't have it, the people next to me aren't going to have it. If I start to spread negativity, it's going to spread like wildfire right across the people sitting around me. So I think they did a really good job of making you feel like you are not an individual sales rep sitting at your desk hitting your number. You are part of a bigger initiative and a bigger goal. And this company and really had this family feel. And the closest thing I can equate it to is being on a sports team where you're in this you're practicing hard every day, you're playing in games, you're going through these battles. But then when you hit the number at the end of the month or you win the game, you're celebrating like a team. And they did a really good job of celebrating the wins and picking you up when you lost.
That's amazing. I think we've had so many conversations recently, and Julie, you probably saw me laughing just a moment ago when you said your background is in sports. I can't tell you how many successful leaders that we've talked to, specifically in sales, that have a sports background, because there's certainly a level of discipline and motivation that you learn at a young age. So, leaders that are out there that are listening to this show, if you are challenged trying to find the right talent, look for the sports people.
For sure. I love hiring athletes. I think they bring a sports mentality to the job. There's just a certain edge and competitiveness that they have that's ingrained in them that allowed them to excel enough at that sport to play collegiately or even in high school, right? I think that there's such a connection. Now, I don't think that you have to be in sports to be great at sales, but I think that a lot of the trends that I see are the people who really excel when they get into the role: time management, hard work, coachability, right? They've got yelled at by a coach before. Somebody giving you feedback on a demo isn't that bad. All of those things combined, I think, are three characteristics that I look for in everyone: is the grit, right? The hard work, the coachability, and acceptance of failure and ability to back. So resiliency, right? And I think those are just ingrained in athletes.
Yeah, that's so good. What would you say to like leaders like yourself, Matt, or those that are coaching a team? And not everyone on the team is obviously going to have that like sports background or that type of disciplined approach to things. Everyone has a different personality, different demeanor. How do you, as a leader, coach your team to stay motivated? What are some of the different things that you do to really make everyone feel like part of the team?
Yeah. So I think that when I left single platform and I took the role at Electric was a true startup. I think there were 6 of us there when I started. And in my mind, I had the whole sales thing figured out at 20. I think I was probably 24, 25 when I took the role to kind of lead sales at this startup. I was very wrong. I did not have it all figured out. I'm still figuring it out, as I think we all are. But I think that my mindset was, okay, I know what worked at single platform. Give me fresh out of college, no experience. Let me mold the way they think about sales. Let me work with a fresh piece of marble here. Let me look for athletes, extremely outgoing, because that's what was needed for that specific culture and that specific sale. Highly transactional, right? Over the phone, you know, month to month contracts. Now I come to Electric and it's not that. It's $50,000 contracts. It's 45-day sales cycles. It's a different type of person that you need. Maybe they need a little bit of experience, right? Maybe they need all these different things. So I think the motivation also shifts with who you hire. If you are hiring fresh out of college people, you can throw out the sales contests, you can throw out the happy hours, you can throw out the company parties, the things that people are excited about, right? From Electric and then now at Techvera, I have people that have sales experience. I think that motivation is not cookie cutter. What I do is I like to ask each individual person on my team, what motivates you? Like, why are we doing this? We're doing it because we need jobs and we need to pay rent, we need to pay bills. But like, what do you want out of this? Do you want to talk about a career track to leadership? Do you want to talk about how we can keep you here for 4 years and teach you everything you need to know so that you can go sell $1 million deals in the next 5 years? Whatever your goal is, I want to help you get there. And then what motivates you along the way? Do you want to go on a trip? Are you trying to buy a house? Are you trying to propose to your boyfriend or girlfriend, right? Like whatever that thing is, let's continue to bring that up. Let's write it on a sticky note. Let's stick it on your computer. Hey, this is why I'm working hard. This is why when it's 5:30 and I don't have anything else going on, instead of logging off, I'm going to make cold calls for 30 minutes. Because like I want to achieve this goal. But I think that motivation and what gets people excited is different for everybody. And I think you really need to over communicate with your team to get an understanding of what's going to get them excited and get them to work extra hard.
Yeah, Matt, I love your over communication. I put that in air quotes because I think we are starting to see that trend to create healthy cultures. We're hearing it from leaders all across the board about over communicate, over communicate, over communicate. Talk to me a little bit about what are some of the ways that you're building trust with your team and your sales teams and also helping them in areas where when you're going through difficult sales seasons. We all do that. We have your ups and downs. How do you
Yep.
motivate them through those seasons as well?
Yeah, I think one of the things I learned very early on was don't ride the roller coaster. Now, that is much easier said than done. Come into one quarter or 1 month and you think you got all this great pipeline, and then 2 days later, it's all gone. How do you bounce back? How do you make sure that like your activity, your effort, your mindset doesn't go up and down with your success, right? Because I think a lot of the time your energy, mindset, attitude, the things that we can control, they have a direct correlation with how you perform. right? There's so many studies out there now where it's like when people are, you know, depressed and not healthy and all these different things, how that has an impact on the way they physically feel, right? And I think that mindset and the way that you think about all of this stuff really has an impact on your physical feeling, your physical performance, and how you actually excel in your job. So I think not riding that roller coaster, again, it comes back down to a mindset of I'm not going to allow external factors to directly impact the way that I'm handling my business and going about my day. I'm going to control what I can control in my kind of like 3-foot circle here. Whatever else is going to happen is going to happen. But I'm going to make sure that everything is done and everything is good and everything's being handled the right way. I'm going to control what I can control. And I think that's something that we definitely preach at Techvera. And something that I try to work with whether it's consulting, mentorship, or people on my team. It's definitely something that, hey, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs in this game. You got to be ready for that. And you have to be okay. Failure, losing a deal is not failing. We can still hit the goal. We can still win. If we learn from it and get better, that's a win as well.
Yeah, that's so good. I want to dig in a little bit more on the wellness side, Matt.
Sure.
You mentioned like physical wellness, there's also mental wellness. And I feel like there has been more of a focus on the mental wellness as well over the last couple of years, and especially with, a sales role, but also in a remote space. It's almost like over the last 5 years, we've all adapted to, not everyone, but a lot of roles have adapted to a 100% remote type of team. What do you think? Do you think that that's impacting, the average salesperson, whether it's your team or just what you're seeing experience? How does an individual, as well as a leader, manage that from the mental and the physical wellness side?
Yeah. So I think like we just finished talking about motivation, right? When you're in an office and whether it was at single platform or electric, when we were in that office, we're playing music, we're cheering for each other, we're ringing a gong, right? All the normal sales stuff. It's a motivational environment, right? Somebody once told me that you cannot teach motivation. You can only create environments where motivated people will be successful. So that's what I always tried to do with sales, right? Was how do we create an environment where people who want to come in and do the right things and work really hard, they'll inevitably find success. I think that that's much harder to do in a remote world. You sit in your office or you sit in your apartment or you sit in your house by yourself. It's harder to get up and excited for things. So some of the stuff that we're doing at Techvera is we meet every single morning at 9 a.m. It's right now we have a team of 6 account executives. We get together every single morning for 30 minutes. Sometimes that 30 minutes is us just talking, hanging out. Somebody's got a funny story. What'd you do last night? What'd you have for dinner? Because I know that they're, for the most part, unless they're speaking to a customer, they're going to be sitting in that chair, staring at that screen, prospecting, cold calling, or writing emails all day. They're not going to have this team feeling, right? So even something as simple as just getting everybody together to start off the day on a positive note, remind them that it's not just them, that they are on this team that has their back and supports them and cares about them outside of just the number. I think that at least starts off the day with this feeling of I am working for something bigger than just my opportunity. And I think that's really, really important. I think from like a mental and physical health standpoint, while there's a lot of disadvantages to working from home, I do think that those two things are a massive advantage. I don't have to commute an hour in and out of the city every day. That gives me time to bring my son to school, to go to the gym in the morning, to take a actual 30-minute break if I need to throughout the day, right? Where in an office setting, I'm commuting in and out. I'm losing 2-3 hours of my day that I don't really get to do the things that are important to me. I don't get that extra time to take care of myself physically and mentally. Whether it's like cooking meals instead of ordering out. Like when I was going in and out of the office, I can't tell you how many times I'm just grabbing something, a slice of pizza versus, hey, I'm going to be done at 6:30, 7 o'clock. I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to cook a meal for myself. Right. So I think that working from home, while there are disadvantages to ramp is much harder because you're not around other people hearing it all day and seeing and watching people do it correctly. We use a bunch of softwares to help with that, whether it's call recordings or Gong or whatever it may be. But I think there are advantages as well from like personal, mental, and physical health components, like we talked about, which I do think have a direct correlation with how you perform in your job.
Matt, I really like that because I agree with you. I think if you can get people to create some level of, if the only thing they can remember when they wake up in the morning is they got ready and had to commute to work, and the only thing they remember is the drive back, I think it
Right.
takes away from, I think, just the human element of life. I think dropping your kids off at school and being there to pick them up and going to the gym in the middle of the day to get, I think that creates a little bit of the balance that we're looking for in the wellness and the greater purpose of life, I think, for a lot of people. I think the c when I remember when COVID happened, I was very shocked because I used to eat out for lunch every day 'cause that's what we did to relieve stress. The whole
Right.
team, some of the team members would just go out and grab some whatever, takeout or whatever. And I remember when COVID happened, I remember thinking at the end of the month with, they sent everybody home. I was already remote off and on, but I remember looking at the bank and like, "Where did all this money come from?" I think because you're not spending it on fuel, you're not
Right.
spending it on food, but then, you pick up other things. You're going to the gym in the afternoon, you're going for an afternoon walk after your long meeting or sales call or whatever those things are, and there was just a lot more difference in just mental wellness, and I think what we're seeing across the board is healthy cultures equate to their employees' well-being, the wellness of their employees, and I think companies who focus on that tend to thrive in cultures and have healthy cultures. So Matt, talk to me a little bit about building leaders because I know like you've had quite extensive background, and as you've moved from great cultures and great companies, what are some attributes you look for building leaders? And does everybody have potential, or is there something that we're looking for specifically to create a great leader?
I think that 10 years ago, a lot of people thought the next step in their sales career was okay, first I'm an individual contributor, and then I have to be a sales leader. I think that's shifted drastically to there are lifelong individual contributors, and very often they make more money than sales leadership, and they are incredible at their role. They worry about hitting their number, they do it on a consistent basis. I think that some of the best leaders that I've seen were very, very good sellers, but I've also worked with incredible leaders that weren't great individual contributors, right? And they're better at teaching and leading than actually doing the job on their own. I am a believer that you need to build trust, and I call it like juice. You got to build some juice that your team believes in you, right? And if you're getting on calls and you can't help close a deal, that's a problem, right? So you have to be functional in the job and be able to flex the muscles sometimes saying like, here's how to do it, right? And I think that's really important, specifically in my world of startups. I think that if you're working for a Fortune 500 company with, 10,000 employees, maybe it's a little bit different, but when we're getting into this startup world like we are now, right? Our team has grown and we've made some acquisitions. I'll make sure we talk a little bit about Techvera at the end, but I need to be in the mud with my team. And I have to be the first one, be ready to dive in. Because if I'm not willing to do it, I should never, as a leader, expect anybody else to do anything that I'm not willing to do. That for me is like a non-negotiable. I'm going to ask you to make 100 cold calls a week. I have to be willing to make 200. And I think a lot of times leading by example is a big piece of that success and building that respect from your team. What I look for in great leaders is their ability to, I'll use the term again, like over communicate. I think it is so important. I say that phrase every single time when we break our morning huddle. I say, make sure you over communicate on anything that you need. So I think that's a big part of it where if you're not able to adequately articulate what you need from your team in order to help achieve the goal that you are looking for them to achieve, you can't expect them to do it if they don't know the plan.
That's so good. That's so good. I could say so much. I'll hold back a little bit, but I will say this much. Just in my experience, you talked about trust and for your team to be able to trust you as a leader. I've been in environments where you've had a leader who doesn't know the systems or the processes and things like that. And it doesn't create a healthy team culture. There's not that belief in the leader that's really required to have a healthy team. The overcommunicate thing, that's so important because in order for everyone to be reaching towards the same goal, you do have to be clear on the vision and the mission. And also, like, what are the tactics in order to get there within each department. So not only is that communication key for overall, like the entire company, but also each department's strategy to kind of get to that point. Because what we've seen is some of the poor cultures that you see is there's just such a lack of clear communication. And so the healthy leaders that we're talking to, Matt, is people like yourself. What having clarity, have building that trust factor. And it seems like corporate America as a corporate culture, it's moved, it's shifted from because it did used to be like that.
Yeah, and I think the to go along with the trust building, I think, and this is going to sound very like, of course, your team needs to know that you give a shit, for lack of a better term. They have to know that you care. If they don't think that you care about them as people, not about their number, but them as people, it becomes exponentially harder to have those critical conversations because it's all you ever do is ask me about where I'm at in pipeline. And now I'm behind. And now you're telling me, hey, I'm on a PIP. You know what? Forget it. I'm out. Right. I've had people that I put on PIPs that I said, if you're going to dive into this and you want to beat this thing, I'm going to be up with you 20 hours a day to beat it with you. Like I have your back. I want you to do it. I want you here. Let's do this together. And if they're willing to reciprocate that energy and that effort, we do it. And then it was one of the best reps that I had for over 2 years after that.
Yeah.
But I can't have that conversation with that individual if they don't know that I care about them and that they don't trust me. So when we talked about, we need to be able to have critical conversations with our teams, you don't decide on a Wednesday that you need to have a critical conversation and it's going to go over well. You need to know that from day one, I need to be building a relationship with that individual, or when I have a critical conversation, they actually feel like that is not me covering my own ass because we're behind on a number. It's because I actually want you to get better and I want you to be successful.
Yeah, I feel like it's, you got to be a leader holistically, like not just in the times to harp on them about sales and pipeline, like you said, but building that trust factor, I think is so important as a leader. And, healthy cultures, healthy teams, you do have to have that because sales can be challenging. Like you said, it can be a roller coaster at times. And so when you know that your boss has your back and kind of vice versa, you've got colleagues and team members that are kind of helping you along, it allows for you to have more of those transparent conversations. I think that's so good. As we wrap up, you mentioned you wanted to talk a little bit more about Techvera. There were some other things
Sure.
that you wanted to share. Let's talk about that real quickly as we wind down.
Yeah. So we're a national managed service provider. We do everything. We work predominantly with small, medium-sized businesses. So in our world, that's anything from 10 people all the way up to 300, 400 people. Think about an organization of 50, 60 people that doesn't have an IT team because they're 50, 60 people. They still have all of the needs that an IT person would fulfill. But instead of going to hire somebody, they could say, hey, we're looking for somebody to help us with all of our troubleshooting questions, our help desk issues, computer issues, application issues, so on and so forth. We need security, right? We need to protect ourselves from cyber attacks, from breaches, from hacks. We're growing from 50 to 100. We need somebody that can buy us computers, set them up, create accounts and applications, deliver us computers, help us offboard those individuals if somebody were to leave. And then, hey, as a 50-person company that wants to be a 200-person company, from a digital transformation standpoint, how do we get there? Right? How do we go from where we are today to where we want to be? And that's everything that Techvera is doing for its customers. We're there to help with the day-to-day stuff, make sure you're secure, on and off board individuals for you, but also thinking about your digital transformation and where you need to be, in the next 4, 5, 10 years. Um, I don't speak to many people who say, yeah, I don't really know or care what happens in 5 years. It's always like, hey, we're doing this now to get to this larger goal and this larger vision. And we help people get there.
That's so good. I think companies certainly have that need for the IT, especially like when you think about that 50, 60 size of company. It's like they're not quite large enough where they're thinking that far ahead, it seems
Right.
like, but there's certainly a need. And you usually have like this one or two people who's sort of tech savvy who can get everybody set up, but they're completely overwhelmed. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
We very lovingly refer to that as the de facto IT environment. It's, hey, who managed your IT? Oh, that's Jesse. Well, what's
Yeah.
Jesse's role? She's our director of operations.
Yeah.
And it's like Jesse's got the superwoman cape on and she's doing everything that she can, but in reality, like you don't have the right software. She doesn't actually know what she's doing. You guys don't have any of the right security in place. So Jesse wants that off her plate, and it helps the organization, be more functional, more efficient, and most importantly, more secure.
So, Matt, where can people find you?
Yeah, sure. So I have a LinkedIn, Matt Grossbard. Techvera.com is our website. We have a LinkedIn page, Techvera, as well.
Beautiful. I'm sure some folks need to look you up because we know some of them. Oh,
We know a lot.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks so much, Matt. One last question, then we'll wrap it up. For those that are leading out there that are really trying to scale their teams as they're planning in this next 6 months, next year, what are some key things that you guys at TechBear are focused on, whether it be a technology solution or something that's really on the forefront?
I think that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned about scaling teams is that headcount does not equal revenue. And
So
I
good.
see I see organizations make this mistake over and over and over again, where they say, "Hey, one rep equals $100. So if we hire five, that means we're at 500. If we hire 10, we'll be at 1,000." Could you imagine? And that's just not the reality. You need to ensure that you have a healthy top of the funnel and a healthy pipeline before hiring those extra people. You don't want a world where you are hitting the same number that you would hit at three, but now you're hitting that same number, but you have six. It's just more spread out. It makes for unhappy account executives and sellers, causes a lot of stress on the organization from an overhead standpoint. And then you're in a bad spot, right? Where you're like, what do we do now? We have these great people. We just haven't figured out how to get them what they need. So the growth at all cost model is not the way to do it. Spending millions and millions of dollars to go pump out, the same amount is not the way to do it. At Techvera, we are running a profitable organization. And I think the way we've done that is by growing responsibly. We are fast moving, we are fast growing, but we're really making sure that we're going through the due diligence and making sure that we are growing again responsibly and not putting ourselves in a bad spot. So I think for any sales leader out there who's looking a really big number in the face next quarter or next year, be able to communicate with your VP of sales, with your CEO, and say, hey, let's actually think through this. Here's what I would need in order to get to this number. If I can't have that, we need to rethink about this number and rethink the strategy.
That's so good. Thank you, Matt. That was a great nugget to leave behind. So appreciate your time today, and conversation's been fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and just the way that you lead and sharing your journey.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you both so much. Great talking. And yeah, hopefully I can come back again soon.
Absolutely, we'd love it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you guys.